This is Listening with Franklin Livingston, and our guest is Christine Stoddard Sánchez.
Who is their Lord, right? Is it Jesus Christ? But then is it just a theory, right? A lot of things are not the way they are supposed to be, because people, when we say the things we want to do, we believe, and maybe it's not really easy to live those things practically. And when we see that, those people around us, and that's why I invited you to come here, because you're doing a lot of things in the community, and why you do those things. And one of the things we talked about was your mother, because you did not want to see the similar kind of struggles among other human beings that you saw growing up, your mom had as an immigrant. I don't know if this immigrant term is the right term to use. It's like a person who was different.
Yeah.
Right. And because I don't, first of all, I haven't been to Virginia, but there might be people who were immigrants, but maybe did not look different.
Yeah, we didn't really have at least when I lived there, we didn't really have a European immigrant subset, if that's what you mean. Like in New York City, there's a big Polish community, for instance, lots of Polish Americans, first or second generation. But where I grew up, that wasn't the case. White people were American born.
It makes things tough.
Yeah, I mean, because even my dad stood out as a New Yorker because he didn't talk like them. He had a different accent. He had different mannerisms. He didn't go to the same schools. Where I'm from, a lot of people go to UVA and Virginia Tech. Maybe they go to a prestigious private school for their master's or a PhD even, but usually for undergrad, the high achievers go to UVA because it's considered such an excellent school anyway. Thomas Jefferson's University. But yeah, my parents stood out for that reason. But I think, like you said, it wasn't just the immigrants. My mom always tried to get us to see who was vulnerable. Like when I was in first grade, there was a girl with Down syndrome. And she wasn't in a separate class. They mainstreamed her. So she was in the same class as everybody else, but she would get pulled out for special sessions. And one of the teachers noticed that nobody would sit with her during lunchtime and nobody would play with her. So it took me probably until the end of the school year to understand why this happened. But the teacher asked me one day if I would help Laurie, that was her name, open her milk carton at lunchtime because she struggled with it. And I would do it. And I would spend the first bit of lunch sitting with her, and one of my other classmates, one of my other friends would sit with us, and I would open Laurie's lunch and I would ask her milk carton and ask her about her day. And we would talk a little bit. And, you know, as time went on, she was able to open the milk carton by herself, but I would still go and spend that time with her so that she wasn't completely by herself all of the lunch session. But yeah, by the end of the school year, I understood, oh, Miss Hill is asking me to do this because there's probably not another child in the class who would do that. They would complain about it, or they would find excuses not to do it.
And why do you think you were different than the others, or the others were different than you?
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to developing empathy that came from having a mother who, and to a lesser extent, my dad, but still my dad, parents who were seen as different, a whole family that was seen as different. And just knowing that just because you're different doesn't mean you're bad or inferior or from anybody else. You're just different. Yeah, I mean, I was definitely picked on too. I was definitely bullied. It was not just my mom who was getting the brunt of it. I was a chubby kid. I had really long hair because culturally, this was something my mom kept like, oh, well, girls and women have long hair. You don't cut it short, right? So she had me keep my hair to my waist until like almost high school. And I would get teased for that because that wasn't in style, right? Or we would wear a lot of thrift shop clothes because we lived in this upper middle class neighborhood, but it was just my dad working outside the home. My mom was a housewife. So single income in a neighborhood where a lot of people had two incomes and both earning a lot of money. Like many of my classmates' parents were lawyers or government consultants or worked directly for the federal government in high up positions. Like one of my classmates' moms was, I think, the secretary for Colin Powell, something like that, like very high up for him. Not press secretary, that's right, not just like receptionist, right? But we had Al Gore come to my kindergarten class. Like I had powerful parents in this neighborhood, right? For my classmates, they were people who knew people. And for my dad to be a cameraman, quote unquote, for the news and for documentaries, that wasn't considered prestigious. Because especially back then, you didn't need a college degree to do that job. It's changed a lot. But back then, that was much more of a blue collar job. A lot of people just had their high school, maybe an associate's degree. But it was like very physical. Like he had these big cameras and all this heavy equipment. And then my mom didn't have an education and she didn't have a job, let alone a prestigious job like a lot of these mothers. So we stood out. My parents really had to budget and coupon. I really remember my mom clipping all these coupons. And even today, you know, coupons aren't so big, but she has the apps. So she tracks all the deals. And this was in a neighborhood where most families didn't have to worry about money like that. It was just comfortable, upper middle class. They're going to take their European vacation every summer, that kind of thing. So yeah, we stood out. My mom she would make a lot of Salvadoran food. She'd make a lot of like blue collar, dollar store kind of bargain food. She made us avocado toast before it was a popular thing because where she is from, where she is from, avocado is just like an everyday fruit. It's just a normal, like, you eat this. And she would put it on her sandwiches, and the kids, my classmates, would bully me and say I was eating a Grinch sandwich. And of course, like, fast forward to college, like, everyone's eating this. Everyone's spending like $15, $20 on this sandwich. But she got these little like mini coolers, like the little plastic hard coolers on sale at whatever bargain store. And she had my sisters and me use those as our lunch boxes. Well, for a little kid, that's pretty big and heavy, but she would say, well, it's good because, you know, it's sturdy, you can sit on it. If you need to get to something that's high up, you can stand on it. All the other kids had their like precious designer like name brand lunch boxes, and we had these clunky things, and we would get picked on so much for that. It was just all these things that really don't matter, but because they were different, the other kids would notice, like, oh, well, Chrissy, that's what they called me when I was a kid. Chrissy's wearing black sneakers. Those are boy shoes. Okay, yeah, I'm wearing the boy shoes because my mom bought them on sale. You know, they were cheaper than the girl shoes. It doesn't matter, but I'm going to get picked on for it. And that's why I'm the kid that the teacher thinks has enough empathy to open the milk carton for the girl with Down syndrome.
I think when we were making coffee, we were talking about Illinois, suburbs, and the wealth and the Christianity there.
Yeah.
Something I noticed. Now, these are the suburbs that are very white, privileged, and Christian, Anglo-Saxon, say, right? And people would go to church. People would read Jesus' narrative, Christ born in the manger. But I don't know what's missing. What does manger mean? Wealth or poverty? Then Christ, Jesus as a baby, being taken to Egypt. What does that mean? Being an immigrant or a refugee? These terms that we use so commonly, immigrant and refugees or undocumented or whatever terms we see in media, and let's see, journalism there. I don't know if people truly understand the religion they are following or identifying with. Is all about poverty, marginalization,
Right.
immigration,
Right.
hunger, exclusion, up to crucifixion. Resurrection is way after that.
Right.
And unless the parents truly believe and practice that, I don't think kids can do better.
Yeah.
And a lot of us learn things at home, right? And if our culture, society is still full of creeps and bullies and full of prejudice and double standards, there is something wrong in our theory and practice.
Right. Like where I grew up, I remember most of the people in my kindergarten class had gone to the same Episcopalian preschool. It was attached to the church where all of them, almost all of them, would go for a service on Sunday. And my family didn't belong to that church. And that was one of the reasons why I was shy at the beginning of kindergarten, because I didn't know anybody. But most of the other kids knew each other from that preschool. And when I think about it now, that preschool really just represented belonging, conformity, status, right? It was not about all these things you just mentioned, social justice and poverty and marginalization, and teaching the values of respecting different kinds of people and helping vulnerable people. No, it was, okay, this is the Episcopalian school, and we send our children to this school because that's what you do. It's, really frustrating how many people don't necessarily question the values that they're supposedly being taught. They just go along with things because it's what their family does, their neighbors do. It's the easy thing to belong.
Right. And I think I was also thinking, you earlier mentioned about Iowa. I remember I knew a young man. He was 26 then. Wasn't really close to me. He and his wife were very conservative Christians, part of some sort of non-denominational church, and something happened, some sort of national incident. And he said, I trust our military, right? And nothing can happen, nothing can go wrong. Now, I had a different opinion on that, because I believe, okay, we have all the ammunition, we can have, say, 1% people working, but out of this 1% percent that are the best went to all these Ivy League schools or best schools and got straight A's, their mental formation is something you don't know. You can't evaluate and you can't change. Transformation takes some time. And this idea of abuse of power, being a bully, it starts at a very grassroots level, but it can lead up to a very national level too. And we see that. We see what happens in the street crimes in New York City and why people don't have empathy. They can be the best people, but they can be psychopaths,
Right.
right? Sociopaths. And sometimes it's not a disease they got from somewhere. It just developed within them in the developmental state. And I think that the bigger issues we talk about, national security or abuse of privilege or benefits and all that, it all starts from a very grassroots level when you learn how to lie, how to deceive, how to bully, and maybe parents or teachers, they don't really pay attention to what's happening. And if it's addressed at that level, or if kids learn how to be better human beings like yourself, right? So when you get to the adulthood, your lifestyle will be different. You'll be more considerate. You'll be more accepting, embracing, right? Forgiving. And it's a sad reality that it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Yeah, no, my sister is a preschool teacher, and she teaches at an elite private school, very expensive in Philadelphia. But something we've often talked about is how rewarding certain behaviors in early childhood really, like you were saying, can affect the adult that someone becomes and the decisions they make later on in life. I remember my dad said a few times when I was growing up, like, oh, well, boys are just more hyperactive. They're just all over the place. You really have to let them run around and get it out of their system. Okay, well, is that naturally occurring, or is it because little girls are so, it happens less now, but traditionally in this culture, little girls have been taught to be quieter and rewarded for being polite, sweet little girls. And boys are allowed to run around and smack each other and have their playground fights in a way where if a little girl did the same thing, she would be accused of being a tomboy. Like, that's a bad thing, right? Oh, she has no manners. Oh, she's not going to be a well-behaved young lady. And yeah, with my
the boy is supposed to be rough and rowdy, right? So when he grows up, he has a truck. Right. He has a rugged beard, right? He drinks beer. And he sits and watches games with his bros.
Right. So if you're rewarding and enabling certain behaviors in early childhood, most people are just going to keep, again, like, they're not going to question because it's been rewarded so many times over and over that as they get old, like, that's just the thing. That's the way to do it. That's how I'm supposed to be. This is natural. I don't think even many people would think, oh, this is what everybody wants me to be. Like, I'm performing in a society. This is being rewarded in society. No, it's just, that's what you do because you haven't been taught to question otherwise.
Something came to my mind. It's a bit irrelevant. So in Cedar Falls, Iowa, your favorite state, there is still probably John Deere factory.
Right, yeah.
Tractors. And these engineers, they make a lot of money. I don't know how much, but people used to have their own airplanes and large gigantic houses. So I remember a few times I've noticed this. If you'd go to a restaurant, especially in the evening, so you'll see a male figure, probably his hair like me right now, which you can do yourself, with a crew neck
Yeah.
t-shirt and shorts, and a bit without any six packs on his phone. And then across from him, there'll be a very pretty, petite, nicely dressed up, including her earrings and all, attentive young lady who's maybe a wife. I think that they have more like wedding culture. They get married at 21 or whatever. So the body language is so different. She's way attentive and she's there for him. And he's sitting there because he knows he's going to pay the bill, whatever the check is. And he's not really that attentive to her. That's the culture we live in. The other thing I noticed a lot, and this has nothing to do with Iowa or anything, there's then these cultural, it's not expectation, but it becomes some sort of norm that what's a desirable guy, right? Desirable guy is rugged, emotionless, stoic, and driving truck, eating hamburgers. He's tough. He can mow your lawn. He plows your snow. He can fix your car, and you can cry on his shoulder because he doesn't cry. Only you cry. And then you get married. Soon after the marriage, depending when soon is, months or years, you get to witness that he has issues because he does not know how to express himself.
Right.
Then it depends which scenario. He has some sort of drug issues then, or maybe he's an alcoholic, or he ends up becoming a wife beater, and then you just say, no, that was wrong. All men are bad, and I hate men, or men are supposed to be different, and this was so who's wrong there? Where did it go wrong?
Yeah, I don't think that's an individual issue. I think it again goes back to society that we need to raise little boys and girls differently.
How differently? In the same way you guys do?
No, I mean in the way that anybody of any gender should be able to express their feelings, should be able to communicate. And communication is not just about talking, it's also about listening. It's also about processing body language. Learning consent, learning that other people's feelings matter, that empathy should exist, and that, there are a lot of things about gender that are a performance, that if you are taught at a young age, like right now, I'm crossing my legs because I was taught as a little girl to always cross my legs, that it's rude to have your legs open. And I have come to question that. It's still a habit of mine to have my legs crossed because it was enforced. No preference,
just so you know.
It was enforced at such a young age. But yeah, I think encouraging children to, bottom line, have empathy, communicate, and think critically about what they actually want in their lives and what kind of world they want to live in. But not enough people are encouraged in those ways. They're punished for making choices that aren't bad choices. They're just different choices. If a little girl wants to play with a truck, why is some parent or teacher then taking the truck away from her and telling her that's not what little girls play with? That or if a little boy is hitting another little boy because he's mad, why is he in some cases being encouraged as like, well, yeah, that's good, the physical behavior that's going to make him more, make him stronger and more athletic? No, he needs to learn how to talk about his feelings. He needs to learn how to have a dialogue and how most things can be solved with words. Right? My sister, the one who's a preschool teacher, said that she had this little boy in her class who would poop and smear it all over And he would curse and say like just really mean things to the other kids and to the teachers. And when my sister and her co-teacher complained to the parents about it, it wasn't even a complaint at first. It was more like concern. Like, we need to see why this child is behaving this way and how we can make some changes. The parents were in total denial about any of it, that any of it was happening. And they were fine with all that he was doing. And their justification was, well, we're paying so much for this preschool, you should solve it. The teachers need to be the ones who correct his behavior if there's anything wrong at all. No, it needs to start at home. Like you were saying about family, like these are things that you need to encourage in a child, teach a child at a very young age, because they are little sponges. They do absorb so much of our behavior and what we show them and tell them. And they're not gonna, when they're 2 years old, they're not gonna question something. They're just gonna do it because they saw it, or they're gonna repeat it because you said it.
Something came to my mind. I asked you this in the kitchen. Do you consider yourself more of a Latina white girl, right? And you said both.
Yeah, I mean, I think for any mixed person, that's a complicated question. Who was it? Dubois, who said, what did he say? Oh, he had this expression. I wasn't dual perception, duality. Just there's the way that we perceive ourselves and there's the way that others perceive us, right? And these two things exist at the same time always. Now, some people are not that self-aware, right? Or some people, just don't reflect that often on how others might see them, or they really don't care at all. But I think it is important to be aware of those things. It is important to ask yourself questions about how you see yourself. I think definitely, and how others see you. I think definitely there's a lot about me that has been anglicized as someone who grew up in white neighborhoods and has gone to predominantly white schools. But I would be either lying or totally unaware if I said that my mom and her culture didn't have an influence upon me. I went to speech therapy for years because I learned English primarily from my mom, because my dad was often not at home. He was just working very long hours. I only had a minor natural speech impediment. Most of what they were correcting was actually an accent. It was not any kind of impediment. It was because I learned English from somebody who was not a native speaker. And now I don't speak like my mom speaks because I've had those years of correction.
My experience in the city, mostly people I know who come from Hispanic background or have Hispanic influence, they have a distinct accent, which is okay. African Americans have a distinct accent or the tempo, which is fine. I don't know, why do we make a big deal out of this? Yeah. It is a deal. I mean, people too embrace or exclude you, depending what kind of people. But it's a big thing, this accent or speech. Because everyone, I mean, we have regionalism. Wisconsin, you know how Wisconsin people talk. Different than
I know.
Iowa, right? Or New York versus Brooklyn, and then so. And I think historically, the thing is, there's a verse in the Bible, I don't know where, but where Jesus went somewhere and the people said, oh, he doesn't sound like us, or he sounds like a particular place.
Right.
So I think it's just like, maybe that's in human DNA, which is fine. People should focus more on, what am I doing?
Oh, yeah.
Why I'm doing. And I know this is a really stupid example, but Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for the president. He's from the Republican Party too. Like now,
No.
yeah, his parents are from India. Right? This
Okay.
guy was born here. I don't know where. Went to Yale. So somebody showed his clip. He's on a podcast or somewhere online. They're doing something, and a woman is saying, "I don't know. I think that woman is a big somebody, a politician or someone. Oh, I'm not gonna vote for you because you're an Indian." And I think he felt really awkward because he was so Republican and
Yeah.
American, and he doesn't have an accent. He's a very smart guy. And I don't know whom he identifies with because when you were talking about the self learning, I learned about myself. I know now, maybe 10 years ago, I knew that too, but it gets reinforced whenever I travel other countries or go to more ethnic places, how much I can relate to or blend it when it comes to Pakistani people. Right. Because the same thing, if you go to a different school, if you hang out among different kind of people, you might become like them.
Yeah.
And that's what you feel comfortable with. But then there's a public perception, how people view you. And that's usually based on your skin color, your accent. It's sad, but it's true. And I've seen that among Asians, a lot of Asian people I've seen who were born here, went to college here, working great jobs, but in general, they'll be like, Chinese? Is she Chinese? Is she? A lot of people don't even know the difference between Korea and China. And,
Right.
I think I have traveled to these countries. I haven't been to China, but I've been to Asian countries, including Japan, and I can make some distinction now. But I was also an ignorant person a decade ago. So I love traveling, and I think a lot of learning there, a lot of things I've learned